It is known as Alcatraz Island. Every story has a beginning, and in the case of Alcatraz, that was in the 1850s. An island off the coast of San Francisco, named by the Spanish Island of Pelicans. It was first used by the U.S. Army, who built a fortress on the base, and had planned to make it the most heavily guarded base in the West Coast. And it was used to protect California from foreigners during the California Gold Rush, but in 1909 it became too expensive, so the Army tore it down, leaving its foundation for another military prison. But when that became too expensive, they made another prison. In 1934, Alcatraz was opened as a one-of-a-kind maximum security prison. Imagine what life was like on Alcatraz. Picture living in a space the size of a closet. Well, the cells are really 5 by 9 feet, with a toilet, a sink with cold running water, and a bed. Many prisoners could stretch their arms out and touch both walls. There's also a place called D Block. While the cells were slightly bigger, prisoners were alone for 24 hours a day, without one visit to the recreation area. But that too was alone. Prisoners were not allowed to talk to each other except during meals and recreation time. So they had to get their toilet water and use the sewage pipes as a way of talking to each other. Prisoners also talked about how cold it was. While the upper cells were slightly warmer, some prisoners even got a view of San Francisco. There were many famous prisoners at Alcatraz Island, such as Al Capone, who was a very rich and dangerous Chicago gangster, and Machine Gun Kelly, whose nickname was after his favorite gun, and Roy Gardner, a famous bank robber and the last great train robber, who was on the most wanted list in 1921, and the famous Birdman of Alcatraz, a murderer who wrote 2 books on canaries and spent most of his time in solitary confinement. Alcatraz was an extremely well-guarded prison, so you're probably wondering if anybody escaped. Well, there were 8 different escape attempts, but before I tell you about that, there's one myth about Alcatraz that needs clearing up. There were not too many human-eating sharks in San Francisco Bay. Well, they were more smaller, less aggressive, bottom-feeding sharks. Prisoners mainly couldn't escape because of the cold water, strong currents, the threat of sharks, and the long-distance swim to San Francisco. But during 1934 and 1963, in 8 different escape attempts, 36 men tried to escape. 23 were caught, 6 were shot, 5 were never found, so just presumed to be dead, and 2 drowned. That's why they called the island inescapable. Eventually, like the military prison before, Alcatraz became too expensive to run. Food, fuel, and water supplies became way too expensive. Every week, 1 million gallons of water had to be shipped over to the island. So in 1963, after 29 years of operation, Alcatraz shut down. All the prisoners left and were moved to different prisons, and then Alcatraz was abandoned. There are many plans on what to do with Alcatraz, including a monument to the United Nations, a West Coast version of the Statue of Liberty. But in 1969, Native American Indians took over the island. They protested because they wanted an education center on the island. Some vandalism took place, including a fire that burned down a lightkeeper's home. But in 1971, U.S. Marshals stopped it all. Some graffiti is still on the walls for tourists to see. Alcatraz was turned into a tourist attraction in 1973. Just like the Statue of Liberty, you take a ferry route to go over to the island to explore the island and the prison. Alcatraz has been used in many movies, TV shows, books, and games. Now, more than 5,000 visitors go through Alcatraz willingly. Alcatraz is extremely well guarded. Alcatraz will go down in history as a prison that nobody has escaped and lived